Hey, what's going on, guys? So we've talked about, the protests that are going on and everything like that. And I've always said, hey, look, there's more that we have to do than just protest. So I wanted to give you guys 5 practical steps of what you can do to continue your protests once this is all over. Let's go. Number 1, get educated. What do I mean by that? Go to your local police departments, go online and figure out what your police department's policies are. You can see what the use of force means. You can actually research what case law is. So Graham versus Connor, what gives officers the ability to use force, when and why they can use force. So you see all these things that I'm telling you guys to do as far as getting educated are things that I do. So when I bring you guys a Tillman take or I give you guys perspective from a law enforcement side or a civilian side, it's because I'm doing a lot of research on it. So the one thing that you guys can do for sure is get educated, because you can do that out of the comforts of your own home. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, get involved. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of police departments that are doing so many different things so that way they can get their communities involved with their local agencies. It's not just because of this George Floyd situation. They've been doing this for a long time. One of those things are citizens academies. Citizens academies are cool because it allows you as a citizen of your own community to go to the police department and figure out what it's all about. They teach you about, some of the use of force. They teach you about what a patrol officer is about, what a traffic officer is about. They teach you about canines, gangs, you name it. It's cool because it allows you to take a quick snippet about what our profession is all about, especially at the local level. So get involved in citizens academies. The other thing you can do is go on ride-alongs. There are a lot of police departments across the country that offer ride-alongs to their local citizens of the community. So what you should do is go down into your police department, see, hey, do you guys offer Citizens Academy? Do you offer ride-alongs? And ask them, hey, look, can I go on one if you do offer it? That's going to be your first, that's going to be like a real live live PD or cops, because you're going to get to see what it is that a police officer does on his day-to-day job. There's also police departments that offer Explorer programs. So if you have kids, take your kids down to the police department, allow them to get involved with the Explorer program so that way they can see what firsthand experience as a police officer is all about. Let's move on. Number 3, go to your local council meetings. I know it may be boring. I know it may seem like, hey, look, I don't have time for that. But if we have time to protest now because of George Floyd, then we should have time to go down to our local council meeting and see what they're talking about with the local issues. This is so important because you want to get to know the people that are serving your community as a council member. Learn who your local assembly member is. Learn who your senators are. You got to know these people because you got to know the issues that they stand by. The other thing that's important with that is you want to know what their policies represent. Are their policies in line with what you represent? Because if not, that could work against you. The sad thing for me is that I've been to a lot of city council meetings, and when I go there, you only see like 5 or 6 members of the community. But then let a big incident happen in that city that involves the city, you're gonna see a whole packed city council meeting because now it affects them. We need to be like that every single time there's meetings that are discussing issues that are important to you. And so don't just show up when it's convenient, find out what's going on, get involved, know who's doing what, because you don't want to be behind the 8 ball. One of the things I've always said as a police officer is I want to get to know the community before I have to know them. The George Floyd situation was a prime example of that. You guys know where my heart stands, so the community knows where my heart stands when it comes to law enforcement. So I've gotten to know the community before I had to know them. You should take that same approach as a member of living in the community wherever you reside at. Number 4, vote. And the reason I say vote is because voting was created so that way you can have a voice. This kind of goes back into number 3, but once you go to those city council meetings, when there's issues that come up, they're going to be asked to vote on them. So make sure you know what that information is, make sure you know what the policies are, make sure you know what they're trying to change, and then vote on it. But the other thing I want to really highlight is I don't want you to vote based off of who you identify with as far as your party lines are concerned. What that means is that if you're a Democrat, that doesn't mean that you have to vote for a Democratic person or you have to vote for Democratic policies. If you're a Republican, that means you don't have to vote for the Republican candidate. You don't have to vote for the Republican policies. That means vote with whoever you feel like you're in line with. So I've tried myself to vote based off of what goes with what I believe most. So don't always feel like you have to vote based on party line just because you identify with that party. Vote based off of what your interests are and what you want to see change. And number 5, if this is probably should be number 1, but I know it's not realistic. That's why it's not number 1 today. But number 5, become the change you want to see. There are so many jobs in law enforcement that you can go into and start being the change that you want to see. For myself, I didn't like police officers. So what did I do? I went in there and I became a police officer and I start being the change I want to see. So when you guys see BBU or whatever the work I'm doing, it's not because I said, oh, I want to go and do this little thing. It's because, you know what, I said, hey, look, there's a real issue with the system and I want to go be the change I want to see. What's stopping you from doing that? And you don't just have to go in and become a police officer. There's so many other jobs within law enforcement that's not an officer. You could become a civilian employee. You could become a forensic, investigator, which means you do the whole CSI stuff. You can do records. You can do dispatch. There are so many other things that you can do within law enforcement that don't necessarily mean you have to be a police officer. So go out there and be the change you want to see. I wanted to give you guys these 5 steps today simply because when I say, hey, look, do more than protest, well, what does that really look like? Well, today I'm showing you guys what it actually looks like. These are just a few things that I've come up with. I'm sure you guys can come up with a lot more. So go out there and, like I said at the last one, go and be the change that you want to see. Thanks again and God bless.